If you could delete anything from the world, what would it be? Human trafficking. Yep. I work in anti-trafficking. Human trafficking is literally slavery and the fact that it is in everything. Clothes, food, general commodities. Don't even get me started on the child trafficking rings. Or that most of my clients were trafficked by their parents at 5, 10, 12 years old. God. It is 100% the one thing I wish could be deleted from this world. How do you even begin to enter that field of work? I was in school for my bachelor's in social work. I had no idea what I actually wanted to do with the degree. By senior year, I had to start applying for internships. There was a long list. It was so difficult discerning where I could fit best. I met with the field practicum person and they suggested an anti-trafficking program that specifically served a population of immigrants. I was drawn to it and it stuck. To add clarity, as a young child my father was rented out to another family to work on their farm. He lived and worked their farm and my grandparents collected the money. He was 8 to 12 years old during this time. I didn't find out that this happened to him until I was older. Sure, this isn't the worst act of human trafficking, but I couldn't imagine this happening to me or my kids. I would love for it to be erased plus my memories. My dad would traffic me as a kid. So many years of therapy and going no contact. Tinnitus. That damn loud beeping. Luckily mine isn't all the time and usually easy to ignore. Mine is permanent and all the time. Gwads, I hate it. Even have to sleep with white noise, otherwise it'll drive me mad lol. Same here, friend. It's horrible, but what can we do, eh? Child abuse of any kind. Kids deserve to grow up happy and healthy in an environment around people that nurture and love them. Not only children suffer from abuse, let's delete abuse as a whole. Yes. Children, adults, animals, no living creature deserves cruelty. You mean that's a net that can't catch mosquitoes? So, the one good argument I've heard for mosquitoes is that they've effectively kept people from fully subduing the nature where they're most abundant. There are some very wild and beautiful places that may have been turned into cities and villages thousands of years ago already if it weren't for mosquitoes. I would give anything just to delete my trashy past and restart over. You can't change the past, but you can make sure that for today and the rest to follow, you're your authentic self. The past is immutable, the future, as yet, unwritten. And every day, a new beginning to work on yourself, your life, and everything else. Your past doesn't define you, it can only make suggestions. To embrace or ignore them? That's your decision for your present and future. I just last week found out from a heat PET scan and based on P-test and subsequent MRI that I have a most likely malignant tumor in the right side of my skull, not brain. Not looking for sympathy or whatever, just feel like holy shit, this thing really does just come out of nowhere. Just did the P-test on a whim. Here's hoping, but mostly just want to say yeah, it can strike anyone suddenly for no reason. It always happens to someone else. Scary as F now. Thanks for all your support and stories, everyone. If anyone was wondering what P-test is, basically worms that are attracted to cancer cells, just came out here in Japan where it was developed, it's all the rage. Looks like it's pretty effective, too. I have brain cancer. This is the hardest part. It should be easier once you know what you're dealing with. It's the unknown that is the worst. Good luck, you got this shit. Man, you're so right about the unknown. At the start of Thanksgiving break my dad got his prostate cancer diagnosis from the MRI scan and it says it was a grade 5 tumor which was described to us as very aggressive via Google. But the office was closed for 5 days for Thanksgiving, so we had to go through the holiday without knowing how bad his chances were, what the next steps were, how much danger he was in. It was awful not knowing. But then we heard back from the doctor and it turns out it wasn't such a bad situation. It hadn't spread to the lymph nodes and he got into surgery on Christmas and they supposedly cut it all out. We got lucky. I hope you are doing well with your situation. Best wishes for a successful treatment and recovery. For the most part, yes. The cancer one is simple. The tumors indirectly kill you by harming other organs, so it can be considered in and of itself lethal. Memory-degrading diseases, however, do not kill you but rather make life unable to be lived fruitfully. They eventually reach a point where one wonders if life is even worth living if old memories fade and no new memories can be made, but, at least these days, usually another disease state takes the sufferers out at around this stage. Should immortality exist, but the cognitive degradation diseases not be cured, then euthanasia would be a more heavily discussed topic. Mental illness. Too many lives affected by good intentions coming to support someone, but it turns out to be an abusive power dynamic. Too many lives lost to a very worrying level of apathy. Imagine the life that so many people could have and be happy in, but their natural brain chemicals are just like nah. Sucks. I have borderline personality disorder. My dad certainly has it, but he doesn't believe in therapy or self-reflection. He berates my mom and has a short temper, getting mad at every little thing. I used to be the same way, irritability, short temper, black and white thinking. After 4 years of therapy and continuing to work on myself every day, I barely get episodes anymore. My partner has been with me for 9 years and stayed by my side, and now we have an amazing relationship. I don't let BPD control my life anymore. It's possible to treat a personality disorder and turn your life around, but most people don't want to do the hard work and self-improvement that's necessary. I think it's less about not wanting to do the work and not having access to the work. The system in America is designed to fail us. My therapist ghosted me the last time I tried to unalive myself. Because I didn't have insurance, I was kicked out of my inpatient program. I wasn't allowed to enter outpatient until I had a therapist. No therapist in a 50-mile range would take me on as a patient. I fight daily with the system to receive help and am just constantly told no or too bad. One day I went to the ER because I was feeling suicidal. They told me they were full and to go home. Getting help for things like BPD in America is impossible. Holy F, I'm so sorry that happened to you. I forgot about that component. I was lucky enough to find a free clinic for adolescents before I aged out. And yeah, now that I think about it, there are lots of therapists who won't treat borderline personality disorder because it's untreatable. My therapist actually wouldn't even diagnose me. My partner, who's a doctor, realized my symptoms, and when I told my therapist, she said, yeah, I didn't want to tell you because people with BPD sometimes overact when they find out, rolling eyes face, how can you get better if you can't get a diagnosis? That's great you were able to have access to the free clinic. Finding a therapist is almost impossible. The ones in my area typically can only have 1 to 2 BPD patients because of how complex it can be. Medications don't work because it's not a chemical imbalance. It took me forever to finally heal and figure out how to do the work without a therapist or access to doctors. The system failed you, my friend. You rose above it and worked on yourself. That's self-healing, and I'm effing proud of you. Thanks. Definitely screenshotting this to add to my wall of encouragement. I really appreciate it. Being afflicted by physical illness is one thing, but feeling like you can't control your own mind is somehow much more scary. If thou can't trust your own thoughts, can you really trust anything? You've got a good point. Fun fact, science has proven that genetics is a cause for mental illnesses. Not the cause, but one important factor. Of course, some mental illnesses are caused by environment, i.e., having abusive people in your life, the pressure our culture puts on people to meet cultural criteria, etc. However, genetics does play a role. Mental illnesses are very common in children born of incestuous relationships because two related people are way more likely to carry the recessive genes that, when combined with each other in the offspring, are responsible for those illnesses. Just thought I'd share a little knowledge on the subject to inspire more ideas on what to delete from the planet. Imagine a world with no depression? I can't. Bedbugs? This is the answer I was looking for. Hated them ever since I had an infestation and slept about 20 hours in a week. Got to the point that I couldn't even taste food. F those things. Greed. Most of the other thoughts on here would be covered by this. Child porn. Pedophilia directly? The problem is wider than pedophilia. There are people who sexually abuse children simply to assert their dominance and position over them, not because they're mostly or only sexually attracted to them. I'd say delete sexual abuse, full stop, including any and all sex with children, solves the actual problem much more thoroughly. Some abuse children because they have no one else to abuse, so I agree, let's delete it as a whole. Wasps. Sorry, I'm selfish. I hate having to give myself a 20-minute pep talk to let the dogs outside. I would love to live in a world without being afraid of going outside. Rapists. The act of brainwashing, propaganda. I wish for a rational, educated world. Mosquitoes, I don't think I need to explain why. Animal cruelty. Could not agree more. I think many of the problems humans face today, whether it be health problems like diabetes etc., oppression towards others, climate change, it all boils down to how we treat the most innocent beings on the planet. Everyone is unaware of the ways they contribute to animal cruelty, and just doesn't seem to care. That shit is scary to me, how people can just look past that, and all the connections it has to the issues the world is facing today. It's not cruel if you're euthanizing them to relieve their suffering, it's a kindness that we should really allow for humans too, I'd add. Zoos are cruel if they're captivity for entertainment, but rehabilitation nature centers, with the goal of re-release if possible, are good for the animals. Buying animals from breeders/pet stores often supports cruel breeding practices, but rescuing animals from shelters and giving them love and care isn't. Poverty. Lack of resources is the driving factor in conflicts. I would say less lack of resources and more over-hoarding of resources. There's plenty of resources in the world, but a few have the power to keep resources from everyone else. Anxiety or mental health problems.
Consider subscribing if you enjoyed this video and if you want to see more of Reddit Universe.